All right, here we are with Derek Hudnall, fellow Elite Series pro, and he is from Louisiana. What year is this for you? Second year?
Sophomore season.
Second year on tour, and Derek is very good with a flipping stick. Down in Louisiana, you got a lot of stuff to punch, a lot of stuff to hit down there, and you've made a lot of money, won a lot of tournaments, caught a lot of big fish, flipping a D-bomb.
Imagine that.
A heavy weight, heavy line. A lot of people don't have any idea what punching means. So I want to get you. The people get tired of listening to me and everything I have to say. They want to hear what you, guy from Louisiana. We don't have a lot of punching stuff in Virginia.
Yeah.
I've learned to do that since being on tour, but you grew up doing that, and you happen to have somebody in your family that you're very close to,
right?
Like maybe your dad,
maybe
that does a little bit of that as well,
a little bit,
which I think is a really cool deal.
Absolutely.
So tell us, just walk us through the punching system. Like, just start with the setup. Like, what do you use? What's your setup?
Well, punching, heavy weight, heavy cover. Just think of it like this: bass do not have eyelids. High bright, sunny days, high pressure, post frontal, whatever, they want to get underneath shade. They need to get themselves underneath shade, somewhere where they feel comfortable. So you want big rods, big line, big bait, big weight.
Because you're gonna go into where they live.
That's right.
They're not in a chasing mood to where if you throw a spinner bait or a chatter bait or something like that around the edges.
Right.
Of whatever you're talking about. And some of these mats that you like to fish, sometimes the really big ones are the ones where they're under. And
that's right.
Those fish are not going to go 20, 30 feet to go eat a bait, and they're in a more dormant state.
That's right.
So they're just not chasing, so you got to go to them.
That's right.
So what is your what rod are you flipping with here?
You know, again, you need some muscle to get those fish out of there. So the worst thing, you want to limit the time that those fish are in that super thick stuff. You want to get them out of there as quick as possible, because while they're in the cover, they have the advantage. They have the leverage. When they're out of the cover, we have the leverage. Get them out there. So I flip myself. This is a 7.4 extra heavy. It's St. Croix rods, Legend Extreme. This thing right here, it has the sensitivity that I can feel the strikes, and it also has the power and the backbone to get them out there. You want to end the fight when you're punching with this kind of heavy stuff as quick as possible.
And so some guys like a 7.8, 7.10, 7.11. Sure. Why do you go with the 7.4?
Because I'm only 5'9". And I tell people all the time, it's just like golf. Nobody can swing a club like Tiger Woods. And so if you're not Tiger Woods, if you don't have the long arms, don't try to swing a club like him. The only person that can do it is him. Bass fishing is the same way. Can I get out on a lake and throw a 7'11" and throw a 10XD out all day like Kevin Van Dam? No, because I'm not built like him. A 7'11" would absolutely wear me out all day. So I'm only 5'9", so that's why a 7.4, 7.6 is about the longest rod that I'll go with.
All right, what about your reel? Do you like a really high speed? Do you go like more 7 to 1?
Absolutely. I am an 8 to 1, the fastest you can get away with. Again, because when you feel that bite, your number one goal is to get them out of there as absolute fastest as you can.
Okay, let's go to the line. What line do you like to use?
I like to 65-pound braided line. What I throw here is Power Pro, something really strong, something that'll really cut through that vegetation. That's the main thing. When we throw braid, it's not because of just the penetration and the strength of it. Is when we hook that fish, I want it to be able to cut through that vegetation, whether it be lilies, high driller, or whatever you're doing. That line will actually cut through it to help get the fish out of there.
All right, go down to the weight. When you're talking punching, is it a minimum 1 ounce? Do you normally punch 1.5 ounces? What do you do there?
I'll throw whatever I need to. I've actually gone up to 2 1/4 before. I will punch with the lightest I can get away with. Gotcha. Now, punching to me starts, a 3/4 might be the lightest. 1 ounce to 1 1/4 is probably the more norm. I will go up to a 2 ounce. 2 1/4 for that super thick. I mean, if you've got a lot of lilies and floating cabbage and stuff like that, it gets really, really thick, guys. The thickest part of that mat is where those big ones live, and I'm going to throw however big I need to in order to get there too.
Do you look for? Well, let's keep going with the system before we talk about what.
Sure.
So then you got a hook on here.
Absolutely.
What size is that?
That right there is a 5/0 Gamakatsu super heavy cover hook.
Okay.
You want something with some backbone, something you absolutely cannot. You could not bend that. I'd have to hook it onto my truck and hook it to a tree in order to bend that thing.
And the straight shank gets just better penetration. I mean, everybody seems to go with that. And then, of course, you got the Missile Baits D-bomb on there.
100%.
And that is the dealie on that. It's got that thicker body, the thicker ribbed body, which holds up when you're pushing that big boy in and out of cover. And then they got the little thin appendages is on there. But so getting back to where you're going to flip this thing, you're going to put it into. So you got a big mat, let's say, and it's as big as 3 cars.
Yeah.
Big mat. You want to put it in the middle, do the thick stuff. Do you look for lighter spots? Do you look for holes? Because sometimes, I don't care how heavy of a weight, it just goes on top of it like dry ground.
Sometimes it does.
So do you just how does that work?
Okay, it depends on what you're fishing. Hydrilla is something that I love to punch. That's where some of those big ones live. Hydrilla, to understand hydrilla and how it grows up, it'll give you a better look on how you're going to approach punching hydrilla. The big, thick matted hydrilla, you'll when you're coming up to a big mat of hydrilla, you'll actually see the individual stalks where it grows up, and you'll see it come up. Maybe here, maybe 10 inches here. You can see them coming up. I want to punch in the middle of it because that's where the canopy is. The canopy is their apartment. That's where it's hollow underneath it. If you're punching lilies, it's a different situation. I want to go, and I pretty much throughout the lilies, all underneath it is pretty hollow. That's where they live. So I'm going to try to find and try to get my bait through the thickest possible stuff when you're punching hyacinths, hyacinths and lilies. Now, again, hydrilla is one of those ones that grows up in stalks. You don't want to necessarily punch where it initially grows up. You want to punch in between where it's growing up, because that's where the canopy is and that's where the fish grow up underneath it.
All right, now here's another question. I've had some debate on this. When you approach, let's say a good sized mat, do you go a little ways in and work your way back? The reason being, do you feel like if you go to the back of the mat or 3/4 of the way into the mat, do you think that scares the fish as you drag the bait back across them before you can punch to the ones closer?
I don't believe that, and I'm gonna tell you why. Is because punching 95% of the time is a reaction bite, 100%. Because most of the time when you're punching, those fish are underneath that mat trying to feed, looking to feed. You drop something by their head and it's just a reaction. They're gonna grab it. Now, I will always start on the edge and flip back into it, unless we develop a pattern and we know that those fish are buried way back in it or they're out on the edge. A lot of times when you're punching the edges of mat, the fish are actually kind of looking to feed. But as far as spooking them, I always work the outside in, develop a pattern. If they're, after a couple of hours your bites are coming from more on the inside, then I may start to just key on the inside on more of my bites.
And then, so as you're punching, the bait's going to penetrate through. 80% of the bites are going to come right when it pops through.
Fall, right.
How long do you pump that bait in there before you pull it out and go to the next spot? Is it something you experiment with until you start to get bit?
Absolutely. It's all about experimenting with it. Most of the time, he's going to hit it when it falls through the mat. There are some occasions where it takes punching it a few times. And I'm going to tell you this, when it's normally not when it's falling in the mat, I'll pump it a few times and I'll hold it at the top. And I'll just shake it. And a lot of times they'll grab it when it's at the top of the mat, because that's normally where that fish is at, especially if you're in water that's over 2 foot, over 2 foot deep. Those fish tend to suspend right up underneath it. Pump it a few times, hold it at the top, shake it until you develop a pattern. If they're starting to hit it on the fall, if they're starting to hit it at the top, then you say, okay, I can start, increasing my speed where I'm flipping to where they're at.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And then walk us through the hook set. So you flip in there.
Yep.
You see the mat shake.
Yep.
You see your line jump. You reel up, and you know he's got it, and he's taking off the other way. walk us through the hook set.
What I do when I flip a bait in there, I keep my button pushed, and when it punches through the mat, it's pushed, and I'm have it in my hand the whole time. I can feel that fish hit it. When you know you're in 2 foot of water and it don't fall, and you feel that initial strike, I immediately engage until I feel him. When I feel him, I come straight back. You know, I think it's very important not to whip that fish on a hook set, especially when you're punching like that, because number one, you'll blow a hole in his mouth, and number two, you can actually yank it from the fish.
Yeah, so you got a big weight there.
Yep.
And you know that weight goes into the, you know, the fish bites it.
That's right.
When you hit them, that with that weight hitting it first, I agree. I think it pops their mouth open.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, their mouth has, and then all of a sudden the bait's popping through the hole that you made.
That's right.
But if you ease back into it, it's gonna come through and then kind of stop.
That's right.
Right there, and then all of a sudden we get.
You lean back when you feel the resistance of the fish, and when you lean back, again, you don't want to blow a hole. I have done it before in the past, where I have come back with a piece of the fish's mouth before, and that's when I stopped. Till you feel resistance, and lean straight back on it.
Because
It'll hook you.
heavy action or extra heavy rods, and braided line. There's no give.
No give.
You just got to lean back and
That's right.
and pull into them, right?
That's right.
Yep,
Absolutely.
that's a big deal. I see a lot of people making that mistake when they're punching.
Yep.
And but I'll be honest with you. You know, if you go about 2 or 3 hours without a bite and one snaps on the end of that thing, it is hard as hell to not just crack his head.
Oh man,
it is hard.
It is,
man.
hard.
It is like
it's hard.
It is like a Zen moment. You're like,
That's right. So that brings us to the most important part, is acts like the next flip is always your next bite. 100% of the time, no matter it's been 2 minutes or 2 hours since you've had a bite, every bite is going to be your next. Every flip is going to be your next bite.
Yep.
Because this isn't necessarily a way to catch a lot of fish, but it is a way to catch a big one.
But when they are on that punching bite,
Yep.
I mean, I've had 50 bites in a day before.
Sure.
Easy.
Sure you have.
50 bites
Absolutely.
in a day. So there it is. Punchin with Derek Hudnall, the man who grew up punching. Tell us real quick at the end here. Tell us about your dad and how that worked out. You guys fished a lot of team tournaments together.
Yeah.
Back in Louisiana.
We sure did. Grew up fishing. My dad was well known in South Louisiana for, a flipper and a puncher and everything else. And yeah, man, I mean, him and I started fishing some tournament trails when I first started fishing D-bombs back 5 or 6 years ago. And he's old school, and I can tell you this, it's hard to change his mind on something, but after putting it on him a few times with that D-bomb behind him in the back of the boat, made him a believer. Because it made me a believer. I was a believer well before I ever knew this man, so that was an easy transition.
Yeah, but I've met his dad, and he's told me the story, and I just think it's really cool, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, that's what fishing's all about: fishing with your friends, fishing with your family. All right, so hopefully, you learned a little bit, just like everybody else has along the way from us. This time on the Punchin with the D-bomb, right there.
Hey, mama ain't raised no fool. Get you a sack of them.
There it is. Punchin.
There it is.